Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike here with Randy, and we're gonna dive into what we watched because we have a big topic coming up later. There's no time for idle chit chat.
Big time, exciting stuff.
I don't care about your life or how you've been, Randy, at all, ever, but especially this week.
Mike, it's nice to see you.
How you been?
Let's switch it up. Why don't you go first? Because I always go first on the what have you watched. So why don't you go first?
You know
this
why?
week?
It's because lately I feel like you've watched more new stuff than me, just because be it work or other things, I haven't had the time for to dedicate to a new thing, right? It's been a lot of comfort watching.
Okay.
I will say that I did watch one new thing I've never seen before, but it's in anticipation of the deep dive we're going to do shortly, which for those of you who probably saw it in the title, I don't know why I was going to act like it was a tease. It's going to be in the title. You'll have clicked on this knowing what we're going to talk about. So I don't need to be vague. We're doing Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, the 1980s, similar to how we did our Hanks vs. Cruz battle. And I finally watched The Razor's Edge from 1984.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'll talk about that then.
Sure.
The other thing that I would say I watched this week is I don't think I've talked about it on the show before. I may have offhandedly mentioned that I've watched this more than I should have ever have in life. I have a comfort depressing show. When I'm tired of comedy and superheroes and I want good, powerful acting, I have a show I'll put on that I've seen a million times that is like background noise, but I'll watch, oh, I love this scene. I love this performance. Oh, I want to see this part. It's not happy. And it's the miniseries Chernobyl. So I watched Chernobyl this week for maybe the 10th time since 2019. And it's not like I was a deep invested watch. You know, it's on. I'm watching a lot of parts I love and remember and see. Occasionally I peek up. But have you watched that miniseries?
Yeah, it's incredibly well done. Yeah, it's certainly not uplifting material, but I mean, that's what happened. It's not.
No, and it's I think I was thinking about it because that Borderlands movie came out this week, which I have no interest in. I never played the games, although the reviews have been fucking savage. Have you seen any of My goodness. It sounds like it's miscast, overblown, and for fans of the game, not doing anything for them. Like, you could have had all of that, but if it's like, well, we love it, it was for us.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like that was the case. The reason I thought about it is because I think, so Craig Mazin, who admittedly had written some real horse shit back in the day, he was a writer on some of those movies we've disparaged, like not Scary Movie, but like the Date movie, Epic movie, when he was like a working writer. So I guess that can show that sometimes you got to pay the bills, because when he was able to make his own project, he made Chernobyl, and then he went to work on The Last of Us. And he yes. So he's made those two series, which I love. And he's distanced himself from Borderlands. He took his name off it. He pulled an Alan Smithy. They don't use Alan Smithy anymore, but he has a pseudonym on the script. He had his name removed from Borderlands. So he's like, whatever they did isn't me. If they took the core of my story, so I would technically be credited, he's like, I don't want that credit. So he had it removed, which I think is why when I didn't have a lot to watch and I wasn't feeling particularly like action superhero-y this week, I watched Chernobyl again. And just Jared Harris, Stellan Skarsgård, a lot of the bit players whose names I can't tell you, like the people who play the bureaucrats, the people who play the power plant workers. I don't think there's a bad performance in that show, big to small, you know? And the haunting stuff of like some of the effects in like episode 3, when they're showing you the effects of radiation, like when they really show you, like, because you get the latency period, right? Where the firefighter team seems fine. The wife shows up and is stupid and goes in and spends time with them when she shouldn't.
Sure.
Oh, they're fine. Oh, look what the cat dragged in. And then within a day, the latency period is over and they're literally just melting from the inside out as human beings. And I'm just like, it's not just a gore fest, right? I like horror movies. I can enjoy that, but it's not a gore fest. There's drama going with this terrible visual. And, you know, what a fun time I had watching Chernobyl for multiple times.
It's weird to use the term engaging, but I mean, you always think of engaging usually in a positive context, right? But it is something about, if something, I guess it's done well, right? So that is the quote unquote positive context of it, is that something is done well enough to draw your attention. And I think that's what that does really, really well. So it's absolutely not a fun time, but still interesting. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
No, I agreed. And there's a lot of aspects of it that I find fascinating. And I've looked into like the real world parallels. I actually listened to on one of my rewatches like 2 years ago, when I didn't do it when the show was released originally, but they released a companion podcast with Craig Mazin for every episode. And it was because there's so many lies around Chernobyl in real life, because of the USSR and what the government in the world was for them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he put out a podcast that described what he changed for dramatic purposes and why, and what the real world parallel was, because he basically like the character of not Kamanchuk, but the female researcher is not a real person. It was
Okay.
a composite of about 10 people that was on Valeri's team, but he couldn't give 10 random scientists a character arc. So he kind of consolidated all the work this group did into this character. And that's why they mention that at the end of the show, when they do like the epilogue and the photos, they say that this character was a composite of this for these people. But he
Right.
really hammers that home in the companion podcast, trying to make sure that like all of these things happened, but it was the work of this team and doing these people. And I had
Sure.
to consolidate that for a narrative. I was like, okay, I can buy that. And I appreciate him putting that at the forefront.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say Jared Harris, the main guy, right? Did you watch Fringe at all?
No, I
The
heard it was good.
sci-fi drama on Fox.
No.
Yeah. He played one of the big bads one of the seasons on Fringe. At Jared Harris. That was my first introduction to him. And I remember when Chernobyl came out, I'm like, oh, it's a bad guy from Fringe. But
So it's funny, of all the things that he did, as I think, just come off of binging The Crown for the first time
okay.
when it came out, and he is the king he's Queen Elizabeth's father.
Oh,
Which
gotcha.
king is that? I forget which king that is. George the Fifth, I think. I could look it up, but he
Sure.
plays that character. And the thing is that I have to look up. There was another one. He is a chain smoker massively in both roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like,
good
my
Lord.
God, I hope those are fake cigarettes for that guy, because he is just fucking pounding. The last
Yeah.
like 2 to 3 shows I've seen Jared Harrison, he is just pounding cigarettes. And I'm like, God, I hope those are fake.
He's an old school Brit. It's probably baked into him.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh yeah, because he was on Mad Men with cigarettes, and then I'm
Jeez.
just looking up, just like, okay, they are herbal cigarettes, much like people
Okay.
do. But I'm just like, man, I've seen him just housing these things. Aside from Chernobyl, it was my usual host of my regular YouTube videos and my daily subscriptions and things. So we've talked about it before. I watch so much fucking YouTube, dude. I gotta find a regular series again. Because I just watch so many short form videos. But what did you watch before we get into our main topic?
So for the most part, we're coming off of, as of taping here, the tail end of, I guess we're taping this on a Thursday. This past Sunday was the closing ceremonies for the Paris Olympics.
Oh yeah, I did not
there's-
watch anything. Oh, let me take that back. After the breakdancing person for Australia,
Ray gun.
I did Google that and watch that, and it is as deeply terrible as, there's a reason it went viral, because holy shit. But yeah,
Completely worthy, and
yeah.
I would encourage to be mocked, and I appreciate
Yes.
all the work people are doing out there.
Smug fucking look on that woman's face when she's giving the worst performance. That is white people confidence. That's unearned white people confidence. When this smug, untalented white woman just walks out and is like, I fucking got this. And then she does it. It's deeply terrible. And was like, I'm pretty sure I nailed that.
Yep. So it was,
that was the face of entitlement.
The split screen with the Homer Simpson running around on the floor when he gets like, is exactly what they were going for there.
I've seen, I haven't seen this. If it's out there, please tell me, because I saw the Homer Simpson one.
Mhm.
But as we're talking, it just strikes me, what about the episode where Mo is going to teach breakdancing at the annex, where I want that. I want his intro that he gives to have a supercut that's then her
Ooh,
dancing after his intro,
it's
and I
good.
might make it after this. Anyway,
And then have her dancing specifically to Mo Mo Mo. Why don't you like me? Why don't you
you
like
want
me?
to like me, mo, mo, mo.
I like it. I bet you it would work with her, like, whatever they were, crunches.
Well, listen, this is our moment. We
Yeah.
actually have to stop recording. I need to go do this now. Thank you. Yeah, strike
All
while
right.
the iron's hot.
Cut to 3 hours later. No,
So, were you going to talk
the
about actual Olympic sports? Because I derailed you entirely with the
I
one
mean,
thing I knew
breaking
about it.
isn't an official Olympic sport, so that
You're
is
right.
not
My
derailing.
bad. My bad.
um, no, the reason being that both the American basketball teams were playing in the gold medal games on against France, the host nation, in both the men's and the women's on Saturday and on Sunday. Both very actually exciting games. I'm a big basketball fan anyway, and so it was really fun to watch. I know you're not a huge sports guy, but Steph Curry did some unbelievable things down the stretch. He just started making these threes left and right and shots they needed, and it just seemed like every trip down the court he was trying to make more difficult ones. So you're just like, oh, 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 you just keep stepping further and further back. It was great. It was great. Cool stuff.
I'm happy. I'm happy that you're happy. That's good.
It's
I
I
have
don't
no
know.
comments. I'm sorry. That's good. I'm well aware of the appeal of the Olympics, and I enjoyed the memes of how patriotic everyone is for 2 weeks, and then it leaves their body.
The
And then-
I will say the one other thing that we watched in terms of events were as the track and field was finishing up, they do most of the relays, which are always fun to watch. I ran track in high school and I was on a couple different relays, so it's I'm not anywhere. Even at the best I could ever run, I wouldn't even be close to. I would get blown off the track by all of them. But it's fun to at least watch the strategy and you can kind of see what they're doing. The women's 4x400, where everyone runs one lap, and when they're done, they've the combined run a mile.
so,
Uh,
like at the starting line, they do their lap, hand it off, do their lap, hand it off.
Correct. And so there's four
Okay.
women or the
Okay.
men will also won the 4x4. But so the way they do it, because the track isn't, perfectly, it gets longer as it goes out to the further lanes. So like the
Okay.
eighth and ninth lane are closer to 500 meters. So the way that they make that for the first lap, so that people aren't running on top of each other, they stagger it. So technically, if you're in lane 8, you're starting further out in your lane. But when you run, if that makes sense, because you're on the outside, it's actually a longer distance, but you start further ahead. So the person who's in lane 1, which is the typical, like the 400 meters, runs 400 meters in their lane. And so does the same person in lane 8. But to do so, because the lane is further out, they have to start further ahead. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I also think I stopped listening partway through. Not rudely, but I like couldn't. My ADHD took over hard there because I have that problem where since I wasn't completely invested in the
Yes,
topic,
you
my
went away.
brain immediately just started moving away.
Point being, I'll try to be as succinct as possible. For the first lap, everyone is running in different lanes. Okay. Then when they get to the second lap, when they hand off the baton, everyone can cut into the first lane. And for the rest of the race, everyone can run in that
Do they
first lane.
body check people like cut in? Like
No, you get disqualified
Oh,
if you
okay.
do that. So you can sort of like if you get in the way of somebody, you can do that, but you can't literally
would
you can't
you
forcibly do that.
endorse would you endorse like a full contact relay race where it's just like get the fuck out
I'm
my
sure they
way?
have them. Maybe not in the Olympics. That'd be kind of fun. It's sure, why not?
All right, good,
The
good.
but anyway, to put a bow on as much as I can, the
Mm.
women in the women's 4x400, the second woman in the relay was even with Jamaica, I think it was, when she took the baton, and within 50 meters, so like the first turn of that lap,
Mhm.
was ahead by like 15 meters. It was like someone put a rocket up her ass and she just went. It was crazy.
All right.
And the US won by this staggering amount. I mean, it was almost like they weren't in the frame down the final stretch. It was crazy. So anyway, really exciting, fun stuff to watch. That was what I
Great.
watched for the most part. The other thing I found myself into a super deep dive for reasons I don't remember. Maybe somebody posted it or I saw a picture of it of a Homestar Runner. I'm gonna guess you're not a Strong Bad fan. if I had to guess.
Bullshit. Wrong
Oh,
answer,
wow.
pal.
Okay.
I grew up. That's my age range. That's what I
No, no,
grew up
no.
on, motherfucker.
I don't know why. I feel like Strong Bad is very polarizing, and so
I love Strong
okay,
Bad. I still make a Trogdor reference. I make
okay. I'm glad to
the
hear that.
system mutual friend of
The
ours,
system is
Megan,
down.
we
Nice.
still make system is down jokes. And if it's cheat, we installed that light switch so you could turn the lights on and off, not so you could throw light switch raves. It's I was obsessed with
Nice.
Homestar Runner back in the day. And it's one of those, it's not Internet 1.0 because that's your GeoCities, your blocky web pages, but it's that middle period of the internet when
Right.
it's like pre-YouTube, but post-Internet 1.0 as you talk about the evolution of things. Because and like randomly they'll just drop a new one. Like every 2 years they'll just
Yeah.
drop a new one still. It's fucking crazy. And there was a point where I used to check that, like that was a weekly updated religious thing. Oh, new
Yep.
strong bad email, new cartoon. Oh, new, and it sounds so silly. New splash page. They would do the custom pages, and it's
Right.
what's the jokes this time? And they had references to if you knew the lore of Homestar Runner, it was even funnier because they would build their own little universe. And it was a more innocent internet time. It was a more
That's.
innocent internet time.
I am very pleased to hear that you were so
Yeah,
delighted
man.
by it because I was too, and so that was what I spent probably more hours. It was probably 2+ hours of just going through and watching Strong Bad emails
I
and a
have
couple a
done
couple of
that.
the interactive like tunes and stuff like that where it's and I remember and that's the craziest part. You're sitting there and I remember there's a Halloween trick or treat one where it's sort of interactive and the doorbell rings, you open the door and then you offer 3 selections of candy or other things to the people that are
Yeah.
there. And I remember Strong Bad is dressed up as Carmen Sandiego, and you have the option. It's like I don't even remember, but it's like 2 things that are sort of candy, and then the third one is I think it's either an apple or a toothbrush. And he goes, "What is this crap? You know, are you some sort of dentist or a hippie or some sort of hippie dentist?" And it's like, well, I know I pulled that one when I went to it because I'm like, I know what he's gonna say. It just, it was a delightful kind of trip down memory lane.
It's crazy to think about too, by the way. Trogdor was, I believe, released in 2002 or
Yeah.
maybe one.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've been like for a certain subsection of millennials, that is iconic memories. And my favorite thing is I remember old high school friend named Eric. We were in his basement and we were just watching a bunch of these. And the first time they didn't know, which is so funny to think about. You're talking about like clicking and doing all this, that there were always the Easter eggs in the emails.
Yeah.
Like what could you click on to get the little bumper joke and what word is an extra thing that they're not advertising. And you just went down a hunt of the emails. Like, where's the secret thing? What's the click? Where's the thing? And what little joke are we going to get? And it's just, also Teen Girl Squad. I always enjoyed greatly. It was, it's a very 2000s
I was
reference.
just say probably doesn't hit as well today, but
I'm sure it doesn't. But in 2002,
yeah.
Teen Girl Squad was the height of goddamn comedy.
Oh, just I was such a fan, and it always it was a like I said a delightful trip down memory lane. I really enjoyed it. That's what I watched one of the nights this week.
No arguments here. But maybe we'll have some arguments as we move to our main topic today.
What a segue!
Yes, I try. I'm getting better. I actually wasn't going to announce it this time that I felt that was a good or bad segue. I'm glad you've addressed it.
There you go.
No, it's good. I was trying to make it natural, but you've taken it away from me. So,
Oops.
for long-time listeners, long time being like a month ago, if you heard our Cruise versus Hanks battles, we need to address what I feel could be an elephant in the room. In those episodes, Randy insisted that the decade went 81 to 90 and 91 to 2000. And I believe I busted his balls then, and I believe I busted his balls after. And I have insisted that this time, the decade is going to be 80 to 89. And then next week, we will do 90 to 99. And so we will start in the year 1980 Randy, do you have anything that could sway me? Last minute arguments, debates.
Uh, you just decided you were going to do this, so no. We'll
I
just
feel that you just decided. You told me, frankly, you made it clear before that it's because you wanted to talk about movies that came out in respective years on those respective episodes. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do it, but fine. So I am putting my foot down that this is a genuine decade. The 80s is not 1990. It may be culturally because it's that, it's always people joke that the first year of any new decade is kind of the last year of the last decade, but
right.
officially, I'm saying it's not.
So you're taking a quick look at both of them. This actually it's beneficial to yours because it would be sort of a moot point. Chevy Chase did not make a movie in 1990, so I'm good
All
with
right.
that.
Okay.
And Bill
All
Murray
right.
did, and I don't want to give Bill Murray just like a point just because.
So, a little history, obviously, and this will be pretty obvious history for, I bet, people who listen to this show, but let's be thorough. Obviously, these are two classic Saturday Night Live performers. They have a checkered Saturday Night Live history, though.
Yep.
Bill Murray was discussed about being part of the original cast. He was not. Chevy Chase was. However, Bill Murray is Chevy Chase's replacement on Saturday Night Live. And when Chevy Chase came back and hosted the first time, they got into a fist fight. So
Yeah.
they obviously will go on to be in Caddyshack together, and they have a few ties together throughout the years in comedy. They've come to SNL specials together. However, Chevy Chase, to go ahead a little bit, has not hosted SNL since 1997. And that's because he was banned from hosting the show. In the episode, he didn't host. When Bill Murray came on to host in 97, they did a joke special about a Caddyshack retrospective that you could buy like a special on it. I don't remember the other context, but they both were in the special. The episode that Bill Murray was hosting, Chevy Chase was a guest. And Chevy Chase was apparently so disrespectful to everybody that he and Bill Murray once again got into it backstage, and Chevy Chase was banned from ever hosting again. He
Wow.
has shown up on retrospectives. My point being is that these two both had a wildly successful decade in the 80s, varied fortunes in the 90s, and have kind of a tied history in how people know them and how they came together and how they evolved, despite not really working together. But because of that, and also because I think at this point, public perception of them is wildly different,
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun to talk Bill Murray versus Chevy Chase. That is
Sure.
your history. That is how we came to this topic. It's really just my brain going off on places and Randy saying, sure, sounds fine, shut up.
One note about that backstage fight when Chevy hosted, which I
Mhm.
think was, I want to 78,
I
79,
think it was
somewhere around there, right?
it
Or was it
was
the year after?
77, I believe,
Okay.
because SNL debuted in 75. He
Yep.
left middle of the second season, 76, and Bill Murray was in. And I believe it was either later that year or the start of the third year where he came back to host. So I want to say it was 77.
So, and infamously during that fight, there, and as the writers say it, retell it, they're both like foaming at the mouth. They're about ready to, people are holding them apart, and they're just calling, you motherfucker, like this type of thing. They're just trading insults back and forth. And Bill Murray goes in the heat of the moment, goes medium talent, and says that to Chevy Chase. And like apparently, like 3 or 4 of the writers were just like, "Who's this Bill Murray guy?" Like if in the heat of the moment he's like throwing like that kind of veiled barb at him, like that. Not maybe not veiled, like, but
By the
just
way, it
like
was 78. It was the next
70.
season.
Okay.
It was 1978. I looked it up. Sorry.
And it's
Please
just
continue.
I've read that in a couple places in the the Tom Shales, is that his name?
The one that did the verbal history book?
Live from New York,
Yes.
yeah. And
So good. Such
yeah,
an amazing read.
it's an easy read. I've read it probably like 4 times just because it's so fun to revisit. But yeah, so that I just think that's a fun little thing that all of a sudden they gave it, they gave Bill Murray a little more credit. I don't know if they started putting, and he was already getting into more stuff, but apparently that boosted him even higher in the esteem of the writers when that moment happened.
1980, however, what's great about 1980 is we say we're starting with Chevy Chase, but we can start with the tandem movie, the big one, the one everyone's going to
Yep.
want to talk about, the one that they're in together.
Yep.
Let's just go ahead and dive right into the fact that Caddyshack comes
Yeah.
out in 1980 with both Bill Murray and Chevy Chase. There's the famous story that there's the one scene they share together in the movie that they realized they had not scripted a scene with those two in the movie while they were shooting. Like they hadn't scripted a scene of them together.
Right.
So that was come up with day of shooting. They're like, we need to put a scene with these two together in the movie. That's why that scene is those two just fucking around and talking. And, Ty Webb shoots a ball into Bill Murray's shack. They have some goofy chit chat, and then they move on to the next scene. And listen, a lot of Caddyshack is kind of here's a sketch to get us to the next scene. There is a plot, but there's a lot of let's bullshit till we can get to the next tiny bit of plot we need. But that scene really sells that.
Yeah, a lot of 2 minutes of the set. Cocaine, sniff,
Oh
action.
my God. Oh my God. Yes. What do you think of Caddyshack? Because I feel like Caddyshack has fallen out of favor as time has gone on. And it has not stayed, it is beloved amongst sports and golf and enthusiasts. And I'll be blunt, your broier culture still loves Caddyshack. But I feel like as things have moved on, Caddyshack isn't beloved the way it once was. But please argue me.
Here's my 3 takes on it. 2 are of why Caddyshack hasn't aged 100% great. Is that one is that the bro culture, absolutely. I mean, it very much a what would be prevalent in the 80s kind of movies, and where it's a lot of things that are raunchy or sexist, chauvinistic, a lot of those things that are prevalent. Um, 2, it becomes readily evident that it's just kind of a screwball comedy, like that's just a lot of, like you said, a lot of things thrown together, which, while funny, very, very entertaining, is it a cohesive movie? Obviously, the third thing is that Happy Gilmore happened. And
I'm
that
so glad you said that. Happy Gilmore. Yes, I'm so
it
glad you said that.
it took that away, and then because you could say, okay, there was Tin Cup, there were other things that were bringing golf into it, but like when Happy Gilmore happened, you had your crazy comedy that was just like complete comedy, right? Like there was no bones about it, that it was just trying to be.
With, frankly, a better, tighter plot, which is so
Yeah.
funny to say that for an Adam Sandler movie, but it's a tighter movie. It's a much tighter movie with a real kind of character arc and stakes that don't exist in Caddyshack as much. Caddyshack's fun. And
Yeah,
listen, I know this
absolutely.
isn't about him. Rodney Dangerfield, it brought him back to prominence, and he's amazing in it for good reason. Um,
And I'm
and
trying not to
listen,
get away from it, but it's just when I go back and I think about it and I look at the performances in it, I mean, Bill Murray lauded for it. I think he's really funny, but it just, to me, I always remember Rodney Dangerfield as one. And
it's the
then
Rodney
and then
Dangerfield and Ted Knight show. It's
yeah.
Chevy Chase and Bill Murray are the weaker parts of that to me. It is Rodney Dangerfield, Ted Knight,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's all day
And
long for
as
me.
I'm thinking about it right now, I think I like Chevy Chase better in this movie than I do Bill Murray.
I would agree with you.
That's probably a hot take. Okay. That's
I think it is a hot take. I do, but I also think I agree with you.
no.
So isn't that fucking crazy? They had originally written, I believe, the Bill Murray character to be silent, but then they cast Bill Murray. It was
Right.
just going to be like the silent character. What do you think of the choice of the voice and the bits and does it wear thin or does it play the whole time? Because I think it wears thin a little.
I do. Yeah. I think so. And this is a weird how, like, I mean, this could be a completely different deep dive of comparing Caddyshack and Happy Gilmore. Like, that's actually kind of fascinating now that I think about it here. But oh God, who's the SCTV guy that helps out Shooter and
Joe
Happy
Flaherty.
Gilmore? Joe Flaherty. Thank you. If it was that, I think it works better, right? Because he wasn't
Yeah.
and he derails parts of the movie, like, and is a great little antagonistic component. And he doesn't have to be an antagonist, Bill Murray, but if it was more in that part of it, I think it works. The other thing is that, the gopher is ridiculous. Like, it's enough. Like, and they're at the mercy of animatronics in 1980. I get it, but that part even more showcased that these were just a bunch of things thrown together.
No, absolutely right. And the last couple of points I'll say, just because I don't know when we will talk about Caddyshack again.
Yeah.
So good to get a couple of things out.
Sure.
There's a lot of documentaries, obviously, just about how originally it was supposed to be more a story about the caddies and their lives while these things were going on. But then you cast the people that you cast, and it logically no longer is that movie.
Yep.
Directed by Harold Ramis, and the first of many Harold Ramis, Bill Murray combos. Unfortunately, we should have had more than we got, but we can talk about that next week. That feels like a 1990s discussion, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other thing I want to say, do you think, because I could talk about Caddyshack 2 for 40 minutes, and I won't do that here, but do you have a hot take on the use of both the Gopher and the Dan Aykroyd ripoff of the Bill Murray character in Caddyshack 2? Any gut thoughts or reactions to that? Because it really is the palest of pale imitations. And yet they have Dan Aykroyd.
But that really, I mean, I don't know why that was an 80s thing for sequels. Like sequels were almost seen as like throwaways. To me, it feels like if you go through a lot of good not a lot of good, a lot of a lot of sequels were just really bad. They almost were, I don't know if it was a money grab or what it was, just to say, hey, name recognition, people come out to the theaters or whatever. But that's something we should probably dive into. Is there a good 80s sequel?
Well, we can dial back to that in a couple of years in this, because we'll get there in time. Don't forget that Chevy Chase makes a very special appearance. And I say that because that's how they credited him, because they had to drive a truckload of money up to his door to shoot about 2 scenes for Caddyshack 2. So we can touch on that again in a little bit. I just wanted your gut reaction in the moment. But looking at 1980, there is another Chevy Chase movie, 2 other Chevy Chase movies that came out. And here's the problem. I have not seen Seems Like Old Times. Have you seen Seems Like Old Times? It's another, here's the thing. This is, because we talked about what a hit follow play was, this is reuniting Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase. This was clearly meant to be, oh my gosh, we're going to do something big. Not to mention they got Charles Grodin in it as the third lead. And on the poster, above the title, Charles Grodin, because I think people forget what a draw 1980s Charles Grodin was. And I don't mean that as a joke. Right. Charles Grodin in the 80s was a box office attraction. He made fun, like, adult comedies. Not adult ranchy, but adult, like, smart. Let's go see what Charles Grodin's doing. Do you have thoughts on Seems Like Old Times? Have you seen it?
I've seen bits of it, and I've heard people speak fondly of it. I guess I'd put it that way. I think Neil Simon, right? Isn't it
yes,
him?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And the official title is Neil Simon Seems Like Old Times.
There you go. So, and if I'm looking back at the plot to make sure, this is the one where he has to rob the bank because the bank, right? Yeah. Okay.
Listen, it's your classic 70s, like, rom-com type thing that Neil Simon would have done. Like a little bit of his romantic comedy stage play brought to life. He was always very good at that stuff. Decent looking cast. I don't have feelings on it, but it also made $44 million. So it continues to make money.
I think it's taking the foul play, template and saying, here's these 2 people we know can work in this type of thing. Let's put them in another caper-ish type thing and see what happens.
I have seen, and I'm almost hesitant to admit this, Oh Heavenly Dog, which...
Would you believe I have too? That's crazy.
Which, as you may recall, in our body swap episode, the movie, which one was it was Vice Versa. No, it was Like Father, Like Son, the one that Roger Ebert hated so much, that he references longing for the time Chevy Chase was turned into a dog.
That Not just any dog.
Yes. That's referencing this movie. Yeah, he's fucking Benji. It's a Benji movie, which it's weird to me that it's not billed as a Benji movie. Benji was like a thing. It was a franchise. In the 70s and 80s, Benji had name value. But they turned Chevy Chase into fucking Benji, and they don't advertise it as Benji. So that's baffling to me. But that said, Roger Ebert gave it a 1-star review, saying it is not nearly as funny as the ads it could have inspired on SNL, saying they would have made funnier fake ads for it. He called it a total miscalculation. But I can tell you right now, based on our other episode, he liked it more than he liked like Father Like Son and pined for this film in your dog
That,
swap
that's a low
Benji
bar,
movie.
Mike. But
Yes.
I think what
Anyway,
I'd seen is that like what they brought to Chevy Chase was here, here's this script. He thought it was pretty funny. Now, I mean, it's taking anything that Chevy says at face value.
yeah.
But after they shot all this stuff with the dog, they basically called him back and had him revoice a whole bunch of lines. And he said the movie turned out to be completely different. Now, he didn't give back any of the money or anything like that. So, but it seemed like much different than what the original thought was.
Yes, it's very kind of like we ought to reference the same body swap thing. It's kind of like how George Burns was in it for 5 minutes and they called him to do some very bad ADR as the voice of his nephew.
Yep.
I would like to. I've never seen the trailer for Oh Heavenly Dawn. I've seen it,
Okay.
but I've never seen the
Right.
trailer. I'm deeply curious how they marketed this movie. And listen, between you and I, if this turns out to be a waste of 2 minutes, I'll
Yeah.
delete this whole thing. We'll never even
Oh.
know this was in the episode. But if this trailer is worth discussion, this shit's staying in.
I mean, let's
So I'm gonna
recall the Like Father, Like Son trailer, we both agreed was very interesting and seemed like a good screwball comedy. And
Yes.
then we were like, ugh.
So I'm going to play this for us. It will be on the feed. If it's worthwhile, you'll hear this audio.
Chevy Chase is Benjamin Browning, a struggling private eye who's about to embark on the strangest case of his career.
They're doing a fucking Twilight Zone impression.
Yep. Even with the music.
To buy protection for someone, and I know you'd be discreet.
But before he can track down the clues, the witnesses, the evidence, or the suspects, there's some good news and some bad news. The good news is
Call me on Friday.
he's going to make a date.
Call you Friday.
The bad news is he's going to be late.
He just got stabbed. For anyone that was like, why is it going to be late? He got stabbed.
You're acknowledging that you are dead and you agree to all the terms and conditions thereof.
But incredibly enough, there's more news.
Final assessment assignment is to go back and solve your own murder.
Go back. Excuse me. Wait a minute. Those are animals. I'm not going back as an animal.
And now,
Hello?
he's back.
Maybe you remember me. I was killed here.
Somewhat shorter,
I need a clue.
but wiser.
A pair of hands.
With 48 wild and woolly hours to solve his own murder or die again
I
trying.
gotta
This
pause
just
it.
keeps going, man.
I need to pause it. First off, it's been 1:20 of this trailer, and it feels like it's been 2 fucking hours. of this
Seriously.
trailer. It is a 2-minute and 15-second trailer. I feel like we've been watching this for an hour.
Ugh.
So, what you're not seeing, dear listener, and I do believe this will be staying in because, by God, I have things to say. They have yet to address that he's Benji, but he was in heaven, and you heard that. They sent him back to Earth accidentally as a dog instead. So he's just a dog. They have yet to say, oh, this is famous Benji. By the way, would be the 3rd Benji movie, the 2nd sequel to Benji.
Okay.
So they have yet to address that. And right now, with this dramatic Twilight Zone-esque twist and music, he's rummaging around Office Space as a dog. We have another minute to go on this fucking trailer.
20th Century Fox presents
I'm sorry, Mr. Browning. I didn't mean to startle you.
Chevy Chase.
Why don't you stand up?
I am standing up.
Jane Seymour.
How about if I just call you BJ for short?
You're asking for it.
Omar Sharif.
Come here.
Sorry, I gotta be running along now. Oh, you're strangling me.
Robert Morley. And Benji.
Okay.
Hello. Now I gotta run. Turn the lights off when you leave.
So they finally dressed him as Benji with 20 seconds left in the trailer. And to me, and especially in the movie, it could have been any dog. Why
Right.
was it Benji? It could have been any dog. But anyway.
An adult tale of murder, mystery, and forbidden love.
I don't like being cute.
That dog is going to fuck that woman, according to this trailer. That's how it looks.
Oh, heavenly dog.
Okay, so the final
I do
screen,
like
the title screen, is
Benji gets
advertising it.
co-starring credit, so at least.
Yes. So on the poster, it is in very tiny print. Oh Heavenly Dog is massive. You have a big Chevy Chase head. And they've put in the scene of the dog in the bathtub with the woman that they also end the trailer with. Why are they really leaning into this dog is going to fuck this woman? Because boy, are they really leaning into that imagery. The trailer, however, that you would have seen on TV possibly or in theaters, does have a very clear Chevy Chase and Benji are Oh Heavenly Dog. So, okay. What a mind fuck that one is.
That was awful.
That was a terrible trailer.
So
that was a deeply terrible trailer.
A couple of things. That was 2 minutes and 15 seconds, right? Which felt like you said 45 or whatever. If that guy had spoken at a normal speaking length,
oh my
it would
God,
have been
that
like
could have
90
been a minute-long trailer. Chevy Chase and Benji are looking for a murderer. Chevy Chase and Benji are looking
in a world where Chevy Chase and even that's faster than
shit.
Yeah, it's just like I'm gonna do a terrible Rod Serling impersonation. Like it's
oh my God. All right. I wasn't gonna do this for every movie, but now I gotta look up the fucking box office for Oh Heavenly Dog. See how this fucking movie did. Now don't get me wrong, even if this movie bombs, he had 2 really big hits in 1980, right? And one of them is an iconic hit. So he's doing okay. It had a budget of $6 million in 1980, which, boy, feels like a lot. And it had a box office revenue, or it had an income of $6.2 million domestically. I'm not sure if it was released overseas. I can't find it. So sometimes if there's a tiebreaker, we do count how they did. We haven't gotten to Bill Murray yet, but he at least didn't have something that lost money yet. So you can't call it a hit, but it didn't lose money, is what I will give it, if that works for you.
Yeah.
But man, so it's funny is I know that was only year 1 and there's a lot going on and we have to hit Bill Murray, but they both start doing a lot less as the decade goes on. 80 and 84 respectively are kind of like 2 of their biggest years.
Yeah.
And so we'll be all right here. I just wanted to catch those. I know it seems like we spent a lot of time just on Chevy Chase's 1980. But to be fair, Chevy Chase had a bizarre 1980. So let's pivot over to Bill Murray's 1980.
Right.
And we've already talked Caddyshack, right? So that's 1 down.
Yep.
We have Where the Buffalo Roam, which is like store brand Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you haven't seen it. He does, frankly, a very good Hunter S. Thompson. And I think he might do a better Hunter S. Thompson than Johnny Depp, but in a much worse movie. So he does not have, you don't have the style and flair of a Terry Gilliam. You don't have the plotting, the pacing, the approach. His performance, fucking great. And also, as opposed to Fear and Loathing, where they call him, Raoul Duke, and only exclusively does he go by the pseudonym, they actually call him Hunter S. Thompson in this movie. He is Hunter S. Thompson.
Gotcha.
Have you seen Where the Buffalo Roam?
I haven't, so I have to defer to you on judgment here.
Okay, so I will hit you with, it's funny because he and Johnny Depp both approached it the same way. They both spent like a week or 2 living with Hunter S. Thompson, immersing themselves with Hunter S. Thompson. And when you see the clips of them together, when you see the clips of the performances, for my money, Bill Murray gives a more accurate and impressive performance in that they're both just doing Hunter S. Thompson impressions.
Okay.
What gives Fear and Loathing the edge is it's such a better movie.
Right.
This is so Where the Buffalo Roam isn't just Fear and Loathing, but if you've seen Fear and Loathing, you've seen, I'd say, about 80% of the beats they hit in Where the Buffalo Roam.
Okay.
But they do pull in some stuff from some of his other books and a few of his other things. I couldn't place you where, but there's just a few differences that sell it. The problem is it's just scattershot. The tone is off. The pacing is off. I don't get bored watching Fear and Loathing. I get kind of bored watching Where the Buffalo Roam. It doesn't play it as well for me personally. I do want to read off a couple of other few things regarding it. The cast is good. The doctor, Laszlo, they call him Laszlo in Fear and Loathing as well, don't they? As I recall.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So the
Can put it up.
secondary character, his lawyer slash, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure. Benicio del Toro, but not him.
That's Benicio del Toro is played by Peter Boyle in Where the Buffalo Roam.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
it's a fascinating choice.
Dr.
And
Gonzo is
the-
what they call him. In the...
There it is. So Dr. Gonzo, they use the real names in Where the
Yep.
Buffalo Roam. So Dr. Gonzo is Peter Boyle in this movie, which is very fascinating. The representative from the paper in this one is played by Renee Auberjonois, who I love in a lot of things. And more importantly to me is Odo from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Shout out, represent, boom, love him
Sure.
forever. But he's also done a lot of other things. He's a very well-respected actor who you will put some respect on his fucking name. You
Oh,
fuck.
will I?
So you will. Do we need to do a Renee Auberjonois IMDb deep dive? Because I'll fucking do it, Chief. Do I need to talk? By the way, he's done so many good things, but I can't do this for me. I was like, do I need to start with Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach? Because I fucking will.
I don't think we should.
Okay, fine. He's done a lot of good things I won't get into now, but I promise he
I
fucking
believe
has.
you, Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I don't want to play the full trailer, but I do want you to hear the two. Basically, I want to do a bit of Johnny Depp's version
Yep.
and a bit of Bill Murray's version.
I think that's
So stand by while I
warranted.
call this up. We'll have a gap to cut out here because I just thought of doing that now and I didn't call it time. Here is, you know what? Let's start with Johnny Depp.
Suddenly, there was a terrible roar all around us, and the sky was full of what looked like huge bats, all swooping and screeching and diving around the car.
Okay, so that's just a little bit of that, right? Here is, let me switch over to Bill Murray. Here we go.
I've been to outer regions.
No, that's just a clip of him doing coke while he's listening to the other guy. Let me find it. Here we go.
I think I better tell my readers right now that I'm no longer responsible for anything that I write from this point on. I've been without sleep for 80 hours, so I'm beyond simple fatigue. The hallucinations have stopped, finally, thank God. But my adrenaline reserves are burning out, and I'm staring straight into the face of a total psychotic freakout.
I mean, personally, I think that's a better performance of Hunter S. Thompson. When you see Hunter S. Thompson and you've heard Hunter S. Thompson, I think, again, Fear and Loathing is so good, and his performance works so well in the movie because it really does match the heightened frenetic energy of the movie. Bill Murray's is much more subdued, as you can tell, but it's just, I don't know, it's just good to me. It's just good to me. All right.
It's
moving.
weird. What I heard there
Yeah.
was, could we have put William Shatner there?
Yeah, but that's Hunter S. Thompson's cadence. That's
Yeah.
how he talks. Like,
No,
you've
but
heard
sort of
actual...
Shatner-esque too. That's what I'm just saying. If
Yeah.
we had cast him as Hunter S. Thompson, what would that look like?
I mean, it would
Thoughts
look
crossing
terrible.
my brain. It would, yeah. And that's part of it. Is that like I can hear it, but like the look doesn't. I think Bill Murray captures the look much better. I agree.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then the only other thing he did in 1980 is something I had never heard of until I was looking this up, was BC Rock.
Did you do any research on this?
I didn't. What do you got? Hit me.
Whoa.
Please talk to me about this.
So BC Rock is, and this, what BC Rock is it's a animated film that is the English dub of a French-Belgian, Belgian.
Wait, why was that from? Belgium.
No,
I am
was
a
just
French Belgian.
I was excited for our Belgian fans,
Oh.
so that's why.
I thought you were doing a French Belgian.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's it.
We are
that,
French.
that works
and it
too.
is
But it's,
Belgium. I want the chocolat.
so there is, yes. Well, you could keep going if you like. So it was an animated comedy film by, I'm not sure how to say the guy's name, but he went as Pika or Picha. I'm guessing Pika.
Pikachu.
Picha.
Pika Pika?
That's what the
Pika Pikachu.
so
Got it.
so it's yeah.
That was a Pokemon reference for the kids. I
Gotcha.
tapped into the youth market
You're so
of
modern.
2004. Yeah.
So apparently, so this was a cartoonist and satirist who had gotten a lot of different comics and other works put in National Lampoon's magazines and news that they had put out in the 70s. And he had made a movie called, I believe it was called Tarzoon, which was basically a raunchy parody of the Tarzan stories, like the original Tarzan.
Every ounce of me assumed that's where you were going to go.
Yeah.
The only way that could say that was that was how I was going to go.
So, and then in the late 70s, that was now they did an English dub of that, sort of. It was redubbed "Shame of the Jungle" and released with SNL writers, Michael O'Donoghue from who's got his start in the Lampoon. So yeah, so this Tarzoon was redistributed in the U.S. under the title "Shame of the Jungle" and essentially rewritten and then redubbed. So it was rewritten by a couple Saturday Night Live writers and then dubbed by John Belushi, Bill Murray, and a couple others. It was a terrible flop. This was in the late 70s. But then Pika released another film, and the French version of it was called, I'm going to say it wrong, Le Chaînon Manquois.
Yes, of course.
Which was translated to The Missing Link, and then was released in 1980 with a decent amount of English voices. One of them being Bill Murray.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's the original foreign language version, the original French version of this was so raunchy that the dialogue had to be rewritten when they released it in the U.S. to avoid an X rating.
Fucking prudes.
I mean, and
well,
I don't have time to get into the plot of this, but anyway, that's what was released, and that's the other part of his 1980s. Not a financial success and not a critical success either. So that was his other contribution to 1980.
All right. So in that case, this is an interesting one a little bit, I feel like, because I personally, while I've seen, I'm trying to think how to say this. Caddyshack is a tie almost, I would say. Maybe we edge it to a Chevy Chase because he was a little more prevalent. He had a little bit more of a role, but that kind of counts for both of them, I feel like. So you almost have to look at the year based on the other movies, and I would have to give it to Chevy Chase for Seems Like Old Times, even though I hadn't seen that one. I'm sorry, yeah, Seems Like Old Times, because that was a genuine proper hit, where the Buffalo Roam was not. The animated movie here was really not. And even though you have Oh Heavenly Dog, which barely made anything and was insane by all accounts, if you're really going to give the year to someone, you're probably giving it to Chevy Chase. Do you agree or disagree?
I think I agree with that, yeah.
Okay. So we're calling 1980 a stronger year for Chevy Chase. Writing it down officially. So then we go to 1981, where I got to double check so I don't lie. Bill Murray only put out one movie and Chevy Chase put out two movies, but I personally got reaction based on longevity and legacy and defaulting and gut reaction. I'm going to say it's a Bill Murray year, but let's talk about it because let's ping pong. We just did Bill Murray. We'll start with Bill Murray. Then we'll end with Chevy Chase, and we'll start with Chevy Chase. How does that feel to you? We'll just ping pong as we do. 1981, and we talked about this movie. I don't remember why we talked about this movie already. Do you remember what the hell the episode was? But I know we have talked about this movie in detail. Stripes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Ivan Reitman, right? Oh, no,
yes,
Harold Ramis.
Oh, it was it was Ivan Reitman. Harold Ramis wrote it. That was why we talked about it. It was our Ivan Reitman deep dive episode. So we have already discussed why we like this movie at length. Go look for our Ivan Reitman IMDb deep dive. As you know, we don't need to rehash all of this, but I would say that it is a movie that is still very funny, still very charming, and I think it's still played on TV, still
Yep.
shows up randomly on TV and cable. It is not like you can still see this movie pretty prevalently today for a movie that came out in 1981, I think.
I would argue you could probably say Meatballs too, also, right? But this is the one. This is his proof. Like, I can be the guy. Like, I'm in an ensemble, but I'm clearly the head guy in this. I'm not, I'm not big timing anybody, but I'm putting like my comedic performance here is clearly the
Yeah,
front.
I would put this well above Meatballs. Meatballs is
I just meant
funny,
in terms of
but
what he's doing amongst his
I see.
cohorts.
I
That's
see.
what I mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Leading it
you,
as
I got
opposed
you.
to, his role in Caddyshack, right, is more of an ancillary role, whereas this is
Yeah,
he's clearly
100%.
the front of it. That's what I meant.
100%. This is a Bill Murray comedy, even though that is a tight cast with Harold Ramis and John Candy and
Sure.
Judge Reinhold and a bunch of people that we've talked about. Again, we've covered this. We don't need to cover it all again, but it is a strong film led by Bill Murray.
Sure.
You look at 1981 for Chevy Chase. Modern Problems was a big hit, right? It is
Okay.
a fun movie. It's a weird fucking movie. It grossed $26 million on an $8 million budget, which is pretty good. If you were to look kind of in today's currency, this is on the Wikipedia and I verified, that's an $88 million return on a $27 million budget, which is pretty fucking good for a Chevy Chase comedy where he randomly gets splashed with nuclear waste and develops telekinesis. Like, that's
like you do.
Have you not seen this movie? It's
No,
bizarre.
I haven't. Yeah, no, this is when I was going to help. I need some help for you to fill me in here.
Here's what I like about Chevy Chase in the early 80s. You know what he's doing? He's taking
Cocaine?
fucking swings. Well, here's the thing. The movie was filmed and shot and edited as if it was going to be an R-rated comedy, but it was recut prior to release, which pissed off the writers who thought they cut out the funniest parts. And they probably did. This, to me, is one of those movies that is kind of charming, but could be way better. It is one of those movies that I think, if the internet had existed, would not have made the money that it made. We have talked in the past about how you saw the preview and you're like, well, that's my only shot. I'll give it a shot. And this is a bizarre looking, funny Chevy Chase comedy with a gimmick that people went and saw. It made some money, right?
Mhm.
And it's really just about, I'm trying to think how to explain it. He's hiding his power because he doesn't want people to know that he has the power, and he's been depressed, and he changes his life with this new optimism and confidence, as they say in the wiki, and he wins back like his ex, and things are going great while he's hiding his power. But his powers at one point get transferred, and it's a whole fucking weird thing. Brian Doyle Murray also in it, by the way, Bill Murray's brother.
Yeah, sure. Is this like a precursor to Zapped? Did Zapped just rip this off, kind of?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about Zapped. Let me refresh myself on the plot of Zapped. So, but this isn't the Zapped podcast, Randy. We're talking about Modern Problems, which made money, and it's just, yes, it's a very
As you were
similar thing.
explaining it, that's all I could start to think about. That's why I was asking.
Because here's the thing, there isn't anything about someone's gonna like dissect him and things, and oh my god, I have to hide from the government that you might think. It's just about him trying to navigate his life, and he now has telekinesis. It's very, and
So it's phenomenon. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, oh, you're right. Yes. Well, the government tries to come and test and dissect him.
That's
though.
true. Yeah,
That's the
boy, they
problem.
love to do that. Goodness.
Yes, that's why I thought it's not that, because I thought of Phenomenon. The other movie he made, but my point being is, while that movie made profit and was frankly considered a hit for 1981, you don't remember that movie. That movie doesn't have a legacy. Modern Problems.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The other movie I didn't remember, had never seen, was Under the Rainbow. And it is, I need to read this plot description to you. Have you read the plot description for Under the Rainbow?
And I only know of it at some point I had read an article about this movie, and so I knew of it and had never seen it. So
here's The Deal. It is a 1981 American comedy film starring Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher. And it is, and oh my goodness, set in
Yeah.
1938. The film's plot is loosely based on the gathering of little people in a Hollywood hotel to audition for the roles of Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Jerry Marin, who had a role as Munchkin in the original film, also appears. It's the film received widespread negative reception with critics due to its depiction of the little people and its use of the sight gags involving them. And it's all about the casting of the little people in The Wizard of Oz. There's a case of mistaken identity that involves one of them being a Nazi, a hidden Nazi in 1938. And it's like got like this film noir aspect to it of Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher and like My Gal Friday. And the whole story turns out, spoiler alert, the whole story turns
Yep.
out to be a dream of homeless people in a shelter. And it's just,
But Mike, it's a nod to
I'm
the
not
Wizard of Oz.
here's the deal. I haven't seen it. This is all based on the internet, all based on images I looked up, the
Yeah.
posters. And listen, here's the deal. Here's the tagline on the movie poster. Somewhere under the rainbow, way down low, Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, and 150 midgets are fighting valiantly to save our country against Oz, which is an allegory for Nazism at the time. It is also the fact that because it's 1981, I read Little People because that's how it's written today. The poster and the movie, they're talking
Yeah.
midgets. They're making short people jokes. Don't go see this movie. I've never seen it. Don't see this movie. I'm saying it now. By the way, it was very much a box office bomb. Thank God I'm not here saying, well, it was a hit for its day and we've just forgotten about it. No, it had a budget of $18 million and it earned $8 million. It lost $10 million. Listen, let's just say it. We can move on. Let's not expound the point. Bill Murray gets 1981. He did Stripes, and Chevy Chase did two movies you don't really remember. One of them was kind of a midget hate comedy. Am I wrong?
Well
Can we
said.
just move on?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we just go.
Bill Murray gets 1981. I don't feel we need further discussion.
1-1.
So he's also going to get 1982.
Yep. Ain't no Chevy there.
He did two TV movies that doesn't matter. Chevy Chase didn't release anything. But what makes me feel good about the 1982 release is it wasn't, a small cameo. Technically, he gets it. He was in Tootsie. He was a co-star in Tootsie, which was a big hit. I am desperately curious how this movie's aged because I have seen it multiple times, but I have not seen it in at least 12 years. And it involves Dustin Hoffman cross-dressing to play a woman to get roles because he's not being cast as a man. And listen, trans culture has evolved, and he's not trans. He's not saying he's trans. He's literally dressing up a man as a woman to get roles.
Sure.
But in a world where trans culture and trans representation is so much different, even that it is a decade ago, the last time I watched this movie, which, by the way, I'll just say, I thought was very entertaining then. I thought it was entertaining the first time I saw it. But boy, am I curious how it plays now. But if we're going to talk about a movie that came out in the culture of the time, the culture of how it had aged, even to the last time I saw it, it was a good movie. It was a
Wasn't
fun
he nominated
movie.
for Best Actor?
Yes,
he was nominated for Best Picture? Yeah, like
this movie cleaned up. Dustin Hoffman, we have often talked about the McBain sidekick part that we talk about from The Simpsons, where Troy McClure gets the McBain sidekick role, and he gets the supporting role against this big fucking movie. He's not the draw, but he's going to have eyeballs on him, and he's going to make money because he's going to be the sidekick role in the big movie. That's what Bill Murray was in this. He is the sidekick role in the big movie. Sidney Pollack directed, Dustin Hoffman starring with Jessica Lange, Terry Garr, Dabney Coleman, and that's the most 80s big name cast I can think of. What an 80s cast. And it made so much. It had a budget of $22 million. And in 1982, made $241 million.
Enormous.
It got 4 out of 4 stars from Roger Ebert and most critics. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. And that takes, the reviews of the time. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor. It won Best Supporting Actress, where it had 2 nominations. Jessica Lange beat Terry Garr. Bill Murray not nominated, you'll notice, for Best Supporting Actor, but that's because he was just the comedic best friend. He's charming, he's fun. This is not a Bill Murray movie, but he's a good, fun part. He's the one that knows Dustin Hoffman's secret and is helping him to navigate this,
Right.
And it's interesting. I liked this movie. It was not, by the way, with all that money, the highest grossing movie of 1982. It was the second highest grossing. It would go to E.T., which just took all the other money. It took all the other money in 1982.
And then again in 83, I believe. So
I believe you are correct.
I think they re-released it. I would also say for 82, I think I agree Bill Murray's going to get the win because we don't have anything on the other side, but we don't usually put TV into the mix, but he gets bonus points for being in an episode of SCTV. Good on you, Bill Murray.
You're right. And I respect that. I love that. I'm a big fan of that. But it wouldn't technically count towards his score. But we move on to 1983, where Bill Murray is not going to get dick. He was a guest star in an episode of the show Square Pegs, which, was that the one where the doll comes to life?
No, that's Small Wonder. Square Pegs was Sarah Jessica Parker and somebody else. They were in high school or something.
So I'm not going to worry about why Bill Murray guest starred on it. I'm not even going to look into it. Chevy Chase is definitely getting a point because he made 2 movies. We'll quickly hit the one that I vaguely remember, that had Gregory Hines and Sigourney Weaver. It was called Deal of the Century. He plays a small-time arms dealer where he's selling arms to revolutionaries in South America, and he negotiates the sale of an experimental plane. And let me tell you, if there is a movie that feels like this is Reagan's era. Reagan has been president for 3 years. We're making a comedy about selling arms, and obviously this is a few years before Iran-Contra. But if I just read to you the description of a movie that felt this was being made in Reagan's 80s, and this is a comedy, and you're going to follow this guy and like him as your protagonist, the white man selling arms to South American revolutionaries, boy, that screams Reagan's 80s to me.
And also, we're jumping off of, he has Stripes to thank for this, right? There was enough you could take military aspects of things and poke fun at it. I don't know if that was always a thing.
It was of that era. It was, listen, if there was an era that you could describe as jingoistic, it's going to be the 80s. It was corporate. They loved America. Money were perfect. Everything's great. There's a reason that Rambo went from being a tortured Vietnam veteran in his first movie to leading the Afghanistani refugees with Russia in Rambo 3. Did that age terribly? You bet. But did it make sense for the era? Also, you bet.
Sure.
So it's how it works. Listen, here's what I have to say about this movie. It was directed by William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist and The French Connection. And the best trivia I can give about it, it is one of 2 movies he did not mention in his autobiography. It never came up. So who am I to want to talk more about this movie? Especially, unless you have thoughts on it.
I don't.
Especially when Chevy Chase is going to get a default point because Bill Murray didn't release anything, but also because the other movie that he released in 1983 is motherfucking National Lampoon's Vacation. Original recipe Vacation.
No
We're
doubt.
talking Wally World road trip, Stone
Holiday Road,
Cold
baby.
Classic. Sorry, folks. Park's closed. Moose outside should have told you. And just a million other things. And he's an anchor for this. He's fun. He's good. He translates his persona into clueless dad perfectly for this film. His shtick isn't wearing thin. He's working great in all of these segments. It takes the natural evolution of what the National Lampoon people had done, because even though it was not called National Lampoon's Caddyshack, it almost could have been, right? what they've done through Animal House to
Yep.
Caddyshack into this is them making, for lack of a better term, I feel like their first mature movie. And not mature because it's raunchy, it is, but mature because these are people who've been evolving as creators and filmmakers and as teammates. And this movie works where it takes that, we are going to make vignettes as a story, but find a genuine emotional through line in the story with the family.
And I think this starts Chevy. Now, he had always had this kind of persona, but this starts a run of this charming, but then sort of backtalky, quippy kind of guy. That, I mean, that was always
Yes.
what Chevy did, but there's a run coming of this kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
character. Where,
Oh, yeah.
and it's perfected as Clark Griswold. It works so well. I mean, the beauty of Clark Griswold is he's portraying himself as this family man that's trying to have this perfect kind of nuclear family that's having this great like cross country vacation. And realistically, he's kind of an asshole, and and just it's. But because Chevy Chase is so, I mean, yeah, and he's so charming, and I mean, not even likable, just really entertaining, and some of his stuff is thrown away in such a, some of his lines are thrown away in such a way that you hear them, but you don't hear them, and then you stop and you hear them. You're like, wait a minute, what an asshole! And it's just it's like that. He perfects that with Clark, and then develops it throughout. I will get into in the next couple of years.
Yes. Do you have a favorite scene that, like, just what's your go-to if you're thinking of National Lampoon's Vacation?
Two things. One, I mean, it's not even, it's for the opening one, right? Just Lindsey Buckingham's Holiday Road is, I mean, I said it just a minute ago, but it's just like, it's, it was written for the movie. It's so good. And then, of course, just like you said, the moose at the front.
Yes, I will listen to that song anytime now. I will note that I realize it will never hold a candle to the original, but the band Murder by Death, who I have talked about on here before, where they're one of my bands where they have a terrible name, but I love them because I have to explain to them they're not the death metal that their name would suggest. They did a cover of Holiday Road on their covers album that they did as a Kickstarter. For like
Nice.
to fund one of the other things they did a GoFundMe, that if you got sponsored, you could suggest a song. And somebody suggested Holiday Road and they included it. And it's quite a good cover. I enjoy it a lot.
Okay.
So
I would also throw in there probably just getting to meet Cousin Eddie the first time. I mean, just I know we're talking Chevy's performances, but boy, it's hard not to acknowledge Randy Quaid in the Vacation roles.
yes. And I am brain farting. Is Anthony, this is the one where Rusty
Correct.
is Anthony Michael Hall, right? And he's the
probably
best
the best
Rusty.
Rusty. Yep.
He is the best Rusty, easily. But I like, this is going to sound so silly. I feel like I like the Audrey in European Vacation more that we'll get to, but I like the Rusty more in this one. So, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Correct. I would think I
So-
would agree with that. Yeah.
But based on that, it's always a little bit of, what I love about these two Gimme years so far is the Gimme years we've had, while Gimmes both feel like, and it's tough to say because who knows what they could have made. They're both iconic movies or great performances or good.
So,
I know
yeah.
iconic not for Tootsie for Bill Murray, but they're earned is what I'm saying. They have not done earned. It's been earned. I think it's a gimme, but you put work in.
So like I don't know if there's a sports metaphor for it, but like there's a basketball game where both teams shoot horribly, but one team shoots worse, right? Like, and so both teams
Yeah.
perform badly, but one team happens to score more points than the other, so then becomes the victor. That you don't want
Yes.
that to be your reason for points. Like Chevy and Bill earned these years, I think is what you're saying.
So we are going to move on to 1984. And my goodness. So we are
Actually, no, this is nothing, right? For Chevy?
Yes. So
Okay.
that's why I'm going to say, give me
This
a goddamn
continues.
give me a goddamn second to get through my
Never.
intro. If you technically wanted to give him a credit, even though he's uncredited, he does appear in the music video for Ghostbusters in this year. He's one of the
Right.
people, along with Danny DeVito and some other randos.
But
that
so does
show
Bill
up.
Murray, so that automatically cancels that.
Yes, exactly. So we can't do that. So it's another one, and that's kind of what I was building to. They're gimme years, but Ghostbusters is in 1984, which is an automatic gimme for Bill Murray,
Yep.
right? It's the best part about that is one, I have said multiple times. I said this in last week's episode. I am sick to fucking death of talking about Ghostbusters as a franchise, as a property. I love this first movie, but it has been diminished in my love because of all the years of turning it into something else. It is a perfect singular comedy. And I am sick to death of them trying to turn this perfect singular comedy into a franchise that has never worked as a franchise in any iteration, including a movie I quite like, Ghostbusters 2, but it was quick diminishing returns.
Fair.
I will turn it over to you, and you can hit anything you want to talk about on Ghostbusters because I'm sick of it, but I will end with the footnote of this is a gimme because this movie is a perfect comedy. I just wish it had stayed a perfect singular comedy. Randy?
And I would say we would like Ghostbusters to have followed the vacation mode that I would anyway, that Chevy Chase had. Now there are now the vacation movies, in my opinion, are sort of diminishing. Now we'll get to it. I think it goes down from European because the original is so good, goes back up with Christmas, and then goes back down, even though, well, not bad at Vegas. I guess that's how I would. I guess that's how I would put it.
I 100% agree with your ranking, but I have such a deep love of Vegas Vacation, recognizing it's a completely lesser movie.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you just
Still
love
very
something
fun though. I mean,
that
it's not.
you
At least
know.
it's not.
Yes,
like terrible.
I adore Vegas. And listen,
Yeah.
if we're going to talk
We'll
my
get into
personal
we'll get
rankings,
into 90s later, but yeah.
You're right. Oh my God,
I did that.
you're right.
I did that. I went that route. My point was trying to say that we wanted Ghostbusters to follow that trajectory, right? Like where even its lowest point would at least still be fun, not amazing, right? Like I think that's how
Yes.
we would hope that to be. But that's my take on Ghostbusters. I will say this continues the theme that I brought up about Bill Murray and Stripes, is that this is an ensemble comedy where Bill Murray is clearly the high point, the alpha of this. Like he is the
Yes.
Big Ben is the breakout character of this movie.
But I also feel like they script him that way too. It is not the they
And he's up for it. That's his performance. It relates to that.
Yeah. And I just can't get into more on it. I know it sounds terrible. It's just
we talked about it a bunch during Reitman, so we don't need to get into it.
It's just I think I'm also just more sad because I used to be able to talk about this movie anytime, all day, every day, like I do for Back to the Future or something, and they beat it out of me. They murdered my boy. They murdered my franchise. They murdered my boy. There are two other things that came out in 1984 for Bill Murray. The first one we'll talk about is Nothing Lasts Forever, which I have not seen. I had originally, until recently, not seen either of these. But
and you're probably in the you're in the majority there because it didn't get released.
Yes. So the thing is that this is right. It's briefly uploaded to YouTube. It has been seen by people. It's a black market thing. It's one of those. Do you remember the Tom Schiller films from the early days of SNL? They're the artsy films.
I have a note on this, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, like they have the black and white one of Belushi dancing on the graves and stuff like that.
Right.
This was that. And it's interesting because they filmed it, they shot it. It was kind of on the back of they had gotten so many of the SNL cast members to do it. And then MGM just said no. And I'm guessing it's because they saw it. They actually saw it and thought, no, we're not doing that. And there's a bunch of legal difficulties that will say it will never be released. Purportedly, according to Wikipedia, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd have said they would do DVD special features. They're happy to be involved. They're not ashamed of being a part of it. They just can't release it. It was, like I said, leaked once. It's had some black market stuff go on, but I've never personally seen it.
Likewise, have not personally seen it. Read some of the stuff about it. it was like maybe coming out, then it got shown in a couple places, then it got pulled, and they didn't like it. My only Tom Schiller note that I was going to have on top of that I just enjoyed was one of the films he did for SNL was supposed to be like a fake 1950s cautionary tale about somebody who was addicted to coffee, and which was, I think, Dan Aykroyd's brother played the coffee addict in it. They brought that back in the, I guess, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s as outtakes from that. And it was the famous Chris Farley, we substituted your coffee with with crystals. And
Yes.
he
What?
just goes, he loses
What?
his mind, which is, you son of a bitch. I mean, just, which
Yes.
is what
It's a good
unbelievable.
one.
One of Farley's like top 5 to 7 performances on SNL. Like, just
Agreed.
it's so good. And that was a Schiller. He came back to like offer that up and then introduced it, and that's my Tom Schiller connection. Not necessarily related to this movie, but that's what
I would say not
I
at
knew
all.
of him.
But
That's
good.
what I knew.
That's
That's what I
good.
knew. That's what I knew of him.
You are not wrong. In no way related, but it is that person.
I just
Apparently
wanted to
they've
talk
had
about that moment because it brought me joy.
because he has a cut of it. They have had screenings occasionally. Like Bill Murray's come to screenings of this.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to me that I'm curious as to what it is that MGM said we can't release this and why they legally say they can't release this still. Because if Bill Murray and some of these people are still proud enough to go to a screening of it, there has to be something there, right? Something worth seeing there.
Right.
But anyway, the other one that came out in 1984 that I had always been fascinated by, but had never seen until this week, was The Razor's Edge with Bill Murray as Larry Darrell. He plays a man who goes off to World War I and comes back, and it's without getting, and I'll get into it, it is a very cliched tale of shell shock. Of he went to war was bad, I need to learn what life is and how to feel again. It's based off a novel. And, what's the meaning of life? Here's some things that happened to me to try to find the meaning of life.
Okay.
Here's the problem with it. People didn't want this from Bill Murray in 1984. Ghostbusters came out, I believe, in June 84, and this came out in like October or November 84. This quickly followed up Ghostbusters. Nobody wanted this. He wanted this. Nobody wanted this. The only reason he was in Ghostbusters is this was a passion project of his. He signed on to do Ghostbusters with the agreement that they would finance this movie that I believe he either made first or immediately after. So that's why the release window is so quick. And here's the other stuff I would say, though, to its credit, he's good in it. You can see aspects of the actor he'd become later. The cast around him is amazing. Catherine Hicks, who plays his love interest, you would know her best as the love interest to William Shatner in Star Trek IV, and then she went on to play the mom in Seventh Heaven on the WB.
Okay.
So she's the love interest in this, and she is a terrible person, and you feel rage that he feels against her several times for how she often manipulates his life in this film. And you do feel it. She does a great performance, and he does well in it. The guy, I can't remember his name, so I'm going to call him Marcus Brody. Marcus Brody from Indiana Jones plays her uncle who had like immigrated, and so he's naturally British and has money and helps to finance his overseas excursions when he's trying to find himself, and they touch base with him. He's quite good in it. The rest of the movie is what it is. So the best thing I can think to keep saying is it's a lot of cliched young man finding himself. I have to go overseas. I've tried drugs and alcohol. I'm trying to find myself at a convent. I may have found myself. Oh, I'm traumatized. Maybe it was original in 1984, but I don't think it was. And we've seen it done much better since in other ways. It's good performances, people making an effort. I don't feel I wasted my time watching it, and I appreciate how much Bill Murray put into it. And it's also important to note because Ghostbusters is such a massive hit, and then and then this movie, I think, and this is me inferring from interviews and things, the failure of this movie really depressed him, I think, because he felt pigeonholed. He does not make a credited leading actor film appearance for 4 years. That's why this list is about to get a lot shorter.
Huh.
He does make appearances and things and stuff that you would know and love. But as a leading actor, we're not going to talk about leading actor Bill Murray again until 1988.
That's
And that's
wild.
really why I wanted to talk. That's why I kind of didn't want you to do some research on this. You may have remembered I said, like, don't do a ton of searching. I want to see how you feel about some of these things.
Okay.
And we'll get there and we can look it up. But fascinating 1984 to me. And we can now pivot to, frankly, we'll give 1986, or I'm sorry, we'll give 1985 to Chevy Chase immediately. And it's once again another gimme with but I love the gimme. Spies Like Us. Chevy Chase,
I mean,
Dan Aykroyd.
I think there's 2
Stone
gimmies
Cold
in 85
Classic.
for him, but
There is.
You don't
I
think
skipped
Flight-
over it.
oh.
I thought that was 86. I was crediting the wrong year. Randy, I like this movie, but I know you fucking love this movie. Talk to me about Spies Like Us.
Spies Like Us is another one of those instances, just a lot of great lines thrown in a movie that has a fun little caper to it, right? I think that helps, right? The plot, very much of the time, but there is something to it, and I think that's what helped Stripes to a lesser extent. That's what helps some of these movies like this. That's what helps Ghostbusters, absolutely. Like that, there's a thread through it, so there's opportunities to make all these lines and quips back and forth. Dan Aykroyd is a perfect person for Chevy to play off of. So I think they are the style of comedies. I think Dan Aykroyd would be kind of, he's been in so much, but would be kind of a fascinating investigation at some point, or kind of comparison, just because of the way when he's left to his own devices to lead, it almost gets kind of out of control. But when he's playing off other people, he's phenomenal. He's that ultimate kind of team player on the side.
By the way, I said I was mistaken on a year. I was mistaken on 2 years. All 3 movies he put out this year are the biggest gimmies on the fucking planet for this. Also, he cameoed in Follow That Bird, the Sesame Street movie, which I loved and is a frankly very charming movie. But anyway, back to Spies Like Us. My ADHD saw how many movies I had skipped over on accident when I scrolled. Now, oh my God, this year is perfect.
And that's what I would say is that and I will get to it.
Is Spies Like Us the weakest of the 3 we're going to cover, despite how good it is?
No, because, well, not to me. I think it's the second best of the 2, or of the 3. So,
yeah,
second best of the 3. Yeah,
there we go. We got there.
Yeah, counting is hard, especially to 3. I just think that there are a lot of situations that should seem tense, but are completely just thrown off guard by the comedic aspects of Chevy and Aykroyd. There's just a lot of fun stuff to it, and eventually they find a way to outsmart the enemy through silly means, and that's always fun.
This feels like even though no one, I think, from that movie is in this movie, it somehow to me feels like the spiritual successor to Stripes. It's that vibe, it's that tone, it's that execution. It's a very similar feel to me in that way.
Completely agree.
So which one do you want to tackle next? Your choice of the 2 big ones left in 85 for Chevy Chase.
Let's go. So, and I'll be curious your take on this. So,
yes,
I would go European Vacation next. National Lampoon's European Vacation, which is, in my opinion, the third best of the movies from 85. I rank European Vacation as the 4th best vacation movie, which I know is a hot take, but
bold. European. Oh, okay. Do you want to get your thoughts out? Because I got takes. I got takes for days. You just want me to fucking
go. What's the thing at the beginning? Pigs in the Poke or whatever, like that.
Yeah.
The scene at the beginning, I really enjoy. I guess now the more I think about it, maybe it's a collection of things that I like more, so maybe it bumps it over Vegas, but Big Ben Parliament, like that part's really funny. The Germany stuff I'm okay with. It's fine, whatever. Where are they when is it France where they find the leaked video in the billboard? That part's funny too. So maybe it's a funnier movie. Maybe I'm giving myself more credit then, but I think I still like Spies Like Us and Flesh better than it. But.
So I like Fletch a lot, but it's my third of the three.
Okay.
I go.
It's a bunch of lines, but I really like that. So
he's so fun, and I think, and the bits are good, but I actually, and this is, you ready for my hottest of my hot takes? Scorching hot. Oh, meow.
burn it up.
European Vacation is my favorite vacation movie.
Whoa.
Yes.
I'm glad I was sitting.
Yeah. I love this movie. It is it's the one I've seen the most. It's the one I saw the most as a kid. I just adore it. I think everybody is charming. I think all the settings are hilarious. I think the characters are great. And I will hold off on my ranking until we get further into this list. But I will tell you that because we have many more vacation movies to come. So I don't want to blow my vacation load here on you unless you.
Good.
Yeah,
choose a different phrasing.
No, I can't do it. That's how I talk. It's good. I'm a polite young man.
I disagree.
All right. But European Vacation is my favorite vacation movie.
Okay.
I think everything works. I think it's fun. I think it's charming. I love the settings. I think it has the most exciting of the plots. Then of the three movies, though, I go Spies Like Us, European Vacation, Fletch. Those are my favorites. And that's not to say I dislike Fletch. It's just if I'm forced to rank the three.
We didn't have, that's interesting. We had different 1, 2, 3. That's hard to do.
What was your 1, 2, 3 again? What was the ranking?
I went Fletch, Spies Like Us, European.
European. Wow. Listen.
Usually it's like, we can flip flop 1 and 3. No, for all three to be different is pretty cool.
That was a completely different thing. Yeah. Do you, I like Fletch because of his quips, because he's a perfect guy for it. The plot, to me, I think the reason I rank Fletch last is I start to get bored watching Fletch, and I don't feel like I start to get bored watching the other two. I feel like Fletch begins to wear thin on me for as good as it is, and I don't feel that way on the other ones.
I might just be waiting for the lines. Maybe that's it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But that is, aside from being a gimme in general, what a colossal year. He didn't know he was competing in 1985, but he brought it hard anyway. So 86 is fun because we do have a genuine credit, and it's a great classic Bill Murray credit that people love. But because we're ping-ponging, we will start with the main credit for Chevy Chase, which is a movie that I believe did not perform great. I got to double check.
No.
I know it was maligned at the time.
Roger Ebert didn't like it either.
It's become a cult classic, and I fucking adore it.
I love it.
Three Amigos. I love Three Amigos. I don't have, maybe it's sentimental. I don't have much of a critical take on this. John Landis in his 80s power moves. Steve Martin, Lorne Michaels, and Randy Newman. That Randy Newman writing the movie. Randy Newman doing music. Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, Martin Short in their heights doing comedy. All the co-stars bring it. Everyone brings it. Joe Mantegna.
He's so good in that scene. It'll be a cold day in hell.
Everybody brings it in this fucking movie.
The guy who plays El Guapo, who I don't know his name, is great too. He's so good.
Tell me why
yes.
This movie didn't make a profit. It kind of did. Everything I just listed is how the studio was feeling, right, about this movie. Then it was released and it made $15 million. But with the pedigree that we just talked about, it was supposed to be Tootsie money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was supposed to make the bank, and it didn't. And just what happened in 1986 that this didn't make it, but why is it so beloved by so many of us now?
So the only thing I can think of is that you and I likely saw this as kids. I mean, I remember watching this movie.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I was 6, 7 years old. I mean, this was a VHS like staple. I feel like I watched over and over.
I would like to know, fun fact about this movie. Until I believe late 2022, there were rights issues that kept this movie out of print on DVD and Blu-ray. And it was not available on iTunes to buy. You could rent it for $4, but you could not purchase it digitally until about a year and a half ago. So which had gutted me, because there was a point where I didn't own it, and I was just like, how do I watch this movie in the streaming culture we're in? And then finally, I now own a Blu-ray copy and I bought a digital copy. So crazy.
The other thing too is that it just, because it wasn't marketed that way, right? Like at the time, so we didn't know Steve Martin as the Parenthood and Father of the Bride. Those kind of comedies hadn't really come out, right?
Wild and crazy guy.
Yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels,
yeah.
like those type of movies. And Martin Short was really, I don't even know what movies he'd have been in at that point. And like,
he hadn't done movies. He'd done SCTV and SNL. He'd just come off his year on SNL, where he was one of the breakout of that. Remember that they had the one year,
Billy Crystal,
stopgap year. Yes, they had the stopgap year between Dick Ebersol and the return of Lorne Michaels. That year was like the all-star cast year with Billy Crystal, Martin Short, Harry Shearer. I want to play the official trailer from Three Amigos.
Yep.
And I want to see how we feel about it, knowing that we love the movie, knowing how it performed, how they approached advertising it. The two of us just watched that trailer. The audio isn't worth keeping in here, but part of the reason the audio is not worth keeping is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's a bad trailer.
That is a terrible fucking trailer. It is nothing but music, action scenes, no dialogue and jokes. And also, for so many 80s trailers, we often talk about how, and like Father Like Son was a terrible movie, but was a great trailer because they explained the plot of the movie. They talked about what was going to happen in the movie. Here's what you're going to deal with. Here's who these people are playing. Here's why they're playing them. There is none of that after the first one, though it starts out good.
Yeah.
They're like, they're movie stars who've been fired. I was waiting for the next line of narration, but now they have to be cowboys for real. Oh, now they're movie stars who have to rescue a village. None of that.
Jeez.
If I had seen that trailer, I would have been like, I don't know what this is. You are purely banking on the name value of these stars who are getting no lines of dialogue, who are getting no bits of comedy. It's like they're treating it like a silent movie trailer. It's bizarre.
And I would say it's not even like cut well together. Like it like usually you get like action scene to an action scene, or you try to have bits of dialogue that even if they're not next to each other, they kind of make sense. Like it sounds like one's responding to another and all that other things. None of that happened.
Cuts. And there's a bit early in the trailer where they kind of transition to what's about to be the musical number scene, where it's like the slow dum 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 music, and out of nowhere they just cut to Chevy Chase playing the piano and going, "Hey, yeah, this is pretty good." It's like, oh, this is terribly edited. So, listen, this is the era where you live and die by your trailer.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been talked about that maybe part of the reception was how poorly it was clearly marketed, but hindsight being 2020, perhaps it's because it was so poorly marketed.
That's too bad, because it's such a good movie. It's so entertaining. It's so entertaining and so charming and so fun.
Right?
Yeah,
I adore it. And then this doesn't count for his total, but it would be worth noting that 1986 is also when Chevy Chase was in the "You Can Call Me Al" music video for Paul Simon, which was an all-timer music video, classic. So, moving to Bill Murray's 1986, considering the performance of Three Amigos, and also Chevy Chase is in the ensemble, maybe it's a tighter fight. Maybe I'm up for discussion and it's not a gimme. But Bill Murray is in Little Shop of Horrors as his classic, still well-remembered extended I say extended cameo, because a cameo to me is like a line and you're out, right?
Yeah.
He's got a solid 5 to 10 minutes of screen time and some good jokes, playing the masochistic dental patient of the dentist, or Orange Scrivello in Little Shop of Horrors, the musical version with Rick Moran. He has a scene with Rick Moranis. He has a scene with Steve Martin. It's a fun bit. It's a cameo, but it's an extended cameo. It's fun. What can you say? He's great in the role, and he fits. And he pisses off Steve Martin because Steve Martin just wants to torture somebody, and he's all about it. What can you say? Thoughts?
No, I think that's well said. It's worth noting.
Yes.
But
and also it's his In the Wilderness, right? He doesn't do a credited lead role until 1988, and Ghostbusters was 84. So I feel like maybe it's also why it's so well remembered, because he has such goodwill and people wanted to love him at this point. And it's just like, oh shit, it's Bill Murray.
Yeah.
I love that guy. And it's exciting. But I suppose while I'm open to discussion, it's probably Chevy Chase's year. Am I right?
For 86, yeah. I think
it's
he has enough that, I mean, I don't want to call Bill Murray's performance one note because that's unfair. But one piece of it where it's a tri-star. Was it tri-star? Ooh,
Yes.
how about that? Like, I don't think it
yeah.
was, but Chevy is contributing more, I think, to his movie than Bill Murray is contributing to his.
And it's maybe because it's such a great movie that I love. Like, I like Little Shop more than I like Three Amigos, but based on the criteria and why we're talking, Chevy Chase will get the year because he's a lead in a movie.
I like Chevy's contribution percentage-wise, whatever that is, like more because of Three Amigos than I do of Bill Murray's percentage contribution to Little Shop of Horrors. How about that?
Yes. Yeah, I'll buy that. Now, we get to skip 1987 entirely.
Nobody gets a point.
Nobody. I mean, Bill Murray was in the hot Buster Poindexter music video. But no points.
That almost
no points
gets him a point, but
yes. But we will move to 1988, where we have an uncredited cameo playing himself, and she's having a baby with Kevin Bacon. Not counting it, moving on,
Right.
don't care.
Yeah.
Especially because it's uncredited. He's not advertised. He's not a draw. It's not a thing for him. But 1988, he has one movie, and it's a big fucking return to form.
Yep.
It's an all-timer. It's a classic. I love this movie. Scrooge.
Yep.
Bill Murray and Scrooge, 1988. What a way to come back. And also really cements his legacy, because he had Razor's Edge after Ghostbusters, but he hadn't done anything since the year Ghostbusters came out. This is his first follow-up, real follow-up, as cashing in on that capital. And I think it nails it. And it nails it at the box office. $32 million budget, 100 plus box office, $100 million plus box office. It's a hit. It's loved. It's a classic. He's so good, and the cast is good, and it's fun, and it's charming. And what do you want me to say? It's Bill Murray and Scrooge.
it's great. A top 3 Christmas movie for me.
100%. And I'll tell you right now, because we're going to talk about it next year, I like this movie more than I like Christmas Vacation.
Well, we can talk about it next year, but
there it is.
I do love this movie. Really, and great. And just everything you want from him in this movie. Finding a way to be over the top, finding a way to still be funny, finding a way there are parts of, I think some of the most fun stuff is, his over ego maniacal self slowly coming to grips with the fact that he has no control over what's happening this evening, which is really kind of cool.
Razor's Edge shows that he wanted to act and that can try an arc and can try stuff. And this wouldn't be the movie where he would try to, you can show he likes to act.
Yeah.
He wants to act.
Yeah.
And this movie shows he can act. And you wouldn't expect it, but he totally can.
Here's a question. Did he meet Buster Poindexter? Or did he
in this movie?
Like David Johansen, right? Yeah. I wonder.
He did the music video first,
and then he was one of the ghosts, right? So I wonder if that was related. I just thought of that.
Okay, so we're going to cover Chevy Chase's 1988, and on the offset, if you just look at the list, your gut reaction might go, oh shit, he made 3 movies. Bill Murray only made 1.
He made 1.25 movies.
But if Chevy Chase made 3 bangers, maybe not all-time classics, but if you were to say he made 3 hits that we fondly remember, to me, that could be one classic. If we're talking about who had the better year, would you agree?
I would say that.
If
Yeah.
we were to say
Sure.
that,
hmm
I would say he did not do that. However,
Yeah.
3 listed movies. The first we'll get out of the way because I didn't think that was him. I thought that was a Dan Aykroyd movie. And it was a Dan Aykroyd
Yeah.
movie. He has a cameo appearance in The Couch Trip with Dan Aykroyd and Walter Matthau. We will immediately move on for 2 reasons. 1, it's a cameo. 2, it was a fucking bomb.
Yeah.
It made $11 million on $19 million budget. This was a very bad year for Dan Aykroyd, but we're not going to do the Dan Aykroyd breakdown right now.
Yeah.
Except we might, because the next one we talk about also has Dan Aykroyd in it. We touched on it earlier. Caddyshack 2, where Dan Aykroyd takes over the Bill Murray role, essentially. Not the role, but the position. The weird thing, he's fighting with the gopher. It also only made $11 million, but on a much higher $20 million budget with higher expectations. Co-written by Harold Ramis by like gunpoint, I believe. They were like, backing up a dump truck on money. The only person to return from the original is Chevy Chase. And they back up 2 dump trucks of money to Chevy Chase to shoot what is essentially 2 scenes, right? Maybe 3. 1 at the start, 1 in the middle, 1 at the end to help string the plot along.
Right.
Otherwise, this is Jackie Mason we've talked about Steven Weber being a recurring patron saint of this podcast. The other patron saint of this podcast, who we may talk about more, is Jonathan Silverman, who just continues to show up in here's a terrible thing that got a lot of money. That like he keeps getting work in the 80s and 90s, and it's always bad work, except for Weekend at Bernie's, which is a fine movie, and he's fine in it. And Weekend at Bernie's 2, which is a terrible movie that lost money, but I love it.
Yeah.
So it's not a good movie. But anyway, he's the lead caddy in this terrible movie. Jackie Mason doing his Catskills Jew Club comic sketch. And I don't know how to say Jew Club comic without sounding like I could offend someone, but that was his shtick.
Yeah.
That's what he did. That's who he was. That's what he based his persona off of.
Borscht Belt, I think, isn't that the way?
There it is.
Yep.
I apologize if I was offensive. I was trying to think how to say it. Yes, I just don't want to hit that term.
Yep.
But then go watch Jackie Mason in the 80s. It's his whole fucking deal. Somehow they thought, well, he can lead Caddyshack 2 as our Rodney Dangerfield.
He could not.
You get Robert Stack from the Unsolved Mysteries as the uptight guy. It's a weird, terrible movie. However, I have one point of contention that I will fight to the death. I've brought it up before. I'll bring it up again. I'll bring it up till the day I die. Come at me and you inevitably disagree. But before you fight me, I ask you to go listen and give it a fucking fighting chance. Nobody's Fool.
It's a good song.
Yes. Nobody's Fool from Caddyshack 2 is better than I'm All Right from the original Caddyshack.
Oh.
Come at me.
I don't know if I'd go that far. America liked it though. But it's a good song.
I knew you wouldn't. It is, and I think it's better.
I'm All Right, pretty good, man.
I'm All Right is great. Nobody's Fool is better.
Nobody's Fool doesn't have a do.
No, but you know what it has? You know what it has, and I love it, is a smug I've been making 80s music laugh from Kenny Loggins at the top, because he's getting paid, he's having hit after hit, and at the top, there's like this beat where it's like, and there's this point that I love, and it's not an ironic love. It's not a goofy love. I love this. It's the beat starts and he goes, ha, ha, it's like the literal start of the song. I was like, I'm in on all of this. He's high. I don't know if he did coke, but in my mind, he's Kenny Lovin'. He's Kenny Lovin'.
Yes.
Because he's crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Chevy Chase and Caddyshack 2 to claim the narrative, to re-get the narrative. He is, once again, Ty Webb, and he's phoning it in. He shoots 2 to 3 scenes, doing the same shtick, but worse he did in 1980, only doing it 'cause money.
It is my contention that he acted in 1 1/3 movies in '88, even though he was
That
in
is what you're
3.
saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Because he had the cameo. I get it now.
Yeah.
He had the cameo. He was kind of in this. And then he had one movie he genuinely led,
Which was good.
which is, yes, it's a fine movie.
Yep.
It's funny farm. He's going to, the small town, working in the house. I will tell you that as a kid, for some reason, I got this confused with The Money Pit with
Oh,
Tom
okay.
Hanks. I don't know why. I don't understand why I did. They're not the same. I think it's maybe because it's like the sale of a house is a plot, right? That I think I got it confused when I was dumb. The problem is, this is also a bomb. Even though it's his lead, it's not as big a bomb as the other ones. $19 million budget, made $25 million. So his budgets are ballooning, but his box office revenue is going down. So you look at his list on paper and you go, Chevy Chase did 3 movies. He's the lead. He made a Caddyshack sequel. And again, I'm talking about on paper before you watch them, right? He had the opportunity to say he had the bigger, better year.
Yep.
But he just didn't. It's Bill Murray all day long.
Yeah, it's an iconic Murray performance. No argument here. I mean, I think it's him in '88. So like I said, I liked Funny Farm, but Scrooge is amazing and iconic. So it's like,
You're right.
that wins.
And that's I'm trying to give us some context to people that we're not just going through and going, boy, I love that movie. That's the winner.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that Chevy Chase had a fair shot if you look at his output that year.
Fair.
The problem is his output was bad.
Yeah.
And it's bad against a classic. If it was quite good and he had made a good deal of money against a classic, I could have argued that it would have been his year. I guess I'm trying to say that I worry that we're being like, well, it's the iconic movie he made that year. He gets a point. I want to make sure people we're actually trying to put some thought into that.
Sure.
The catch is he put an iconic movie up against trash.
Yep.
So
trash and average is what I would say, which would,
there it is.
Combined
There
would
it
be
is.
below average. So iconic beats below average.
So here is where I think we may. Oh, God damn it. I just closed the Chevy Chase window on accident.
Ooh,
Give me a second.
This is interesting too.
Give me a second.
While you're
Derp, derp, derp.
while you're checking that, it's worth noting. Can I give
Yes.
you an update?
Please,
it is on the score. It is 4-4 going into 1989.
Is it really?
It is.
How about that? I think
With
that
87 being an off, so this determines 89 determines the way. Hey, we couldn't have planned that out better.
No, I love that. That's exciting. So 1989. We are going to look at that.
Interesting. We might argue with each other on this. This is going to be interesting.
I think we will. Because we're going to start with Chevy Chase because we've been ping-ponging. We are going to start with what is historically probably the lesser of the 2 movies that he made in 1989, which is they're both sequels.
Yep.
It is the sequel to Fletch, Fletch Lives, which, by the way, returns him in theory kind of to prominence. I got to double check one thing. I want to make sure I'm not lying. Here's what we got. Fletch Lives. I was convinced. I actually don't mind Fletch Lives. I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen it a bunch, but I didn't hate it. It was fine. It was middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
But it was less exciting, it was more of the shtick, whatever. But I was convinced it was going to be a bomb. Like when I looked up the stats.
Yeah.
Convinced it was going to be a bomb because he's trending that way in the 80s. And listen, we're going to talk the 90s next week, but you know what the 90s becomes for Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
So in my mind, this was going to be a bomb. It was not.
Nope.
$8 million budget, $39.5 million gross for a perfectly fine and serviceable comedy. So ending the 80s, because his other movie coming out that Christmas, obviously, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, $25 million budget, $73.3 million gross. So higher budget, higher gross, kind of almost, but he has two very good hits. And the catch with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, obviously, while a hit through TV replay, TBS reruns, home video, becomes an iconic Christmas classic. So, like, what a year, what a way to end the decade for Chevy Chase, when frankly, I thought this was going to be the anomaly. Oh, it made some money, but it did well later on TV. Oh, and he also did Fletcher's Bomb. No, he had two good hits with one that became iconic. He ended the decade very well.
I would agree with that. I think Fletch Lives' problem is that its shtick is probably accurate, but he leaned more into the disguisey shtick than the quips. There were a lot, and that's what I loved about the original was the constant one-liners, and there were less of those, and so it was more visual gags, and it's like, that's why I didn't like it as much. I will put on just what Scrooge did for Bill Murray continues to live on, right? Like, because it's being shown every year on, that's what Christmas Vacation has done. It has become, I would argue, I mean, is it that A Christmas Story and Scrooge and Elf, maybe? Those four are like the cable nonstop Christmas movies. I mean, if there's other ones you can think of.
Nope. I 100% agree. Those are the big four cable movies.
Like, that's the new It's a Wonderful Life. That's the new one, that always is on.
So occasionally you get a Bad Santa in there, depending on the network and the time.
Fair.
But the four you listed are the big four because they got constant cable repeats. And Elf being the latest joiner, as soon as it was available to be played on cable, and it was in the dying days of cable over the last 20 years, it got there.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say, however, and this is the moment I've been waiting for, where you murder me. I do not like two of those four movies. Would you like to guess which two they are?
Well, I know one of them is because we've already been building to this discussion, but I got to figure out the other one. Oh God, I hope it's not the one I think it is.
Hang on. I real quick am fine with Christmas Vacation. I think it's funny enough. I've never gotten the long-term appeal other people have. I'm sorry, you're grimacing.
I could do
But
order.
Please let me keep going.
My process of elimination. I know where we're going, and I don't like it.
Hang on, just let me keep going. Let me keep going. And then it's fine. But listen, I don't hate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying I don't care for it. It's fine. It's the lesser of the four Christmas. It's the lesser of the National Lampoon for me. But I don't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, it's fine. If it's on, I know the scenes, whatever. I genuinely detest the other movie. I cannot stand this movie. I hate this movie. If you know everything we've talked about for any of these episodes, you're probably going to guess the movie. Randy, what's the movie I don't like?
It's fucking A Christmas Story. Fuck you.
I fucking hate that movie. I fucking hate A Christmas Story. Fuck A Christmas Story. I can't stand that fucking movie.
What episode is this? 23?
25.
25. Well, 25. We found out, everybody.
No, 26. 26.
These guys are
it's
not 26. Friends. We just found out it took 26 episodes, 50 some hours. Oh,
Randy,
I'm disgusted
this is gonna be
right
great,
now.
because here's the deal. Hang on. I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you a favor because this is big news for you. And we have a lot we can talk about. I'm even willing, because I've hated the movie for so long, I'm even willing to revisit it and watch it for the first time in at least 12 years.
Okay.
At least. However, if you promise not to argue with me about A Christmas Story right now, I promise you a December Christmas episode where I watch A Christmas Story and we will talk about it.
Ooh.
Okay? You have to table it for now, though. You got to keep that rage under control, and you got to table it now. And we are as we are recording this, we are in the second week of August. Okay?
We'll let it fester for 4 months. Great.
To table it until December.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair.
we will do Christmas talk. We've never done a Christmas episode before. Our first episode was December 28th of last year. We did it after Christmas and we moved on from there. We did it. It was our first episode, was the last week of December. I need you to hang on to this rage. Let it fester. Let it bubble. And we can talk about why I
know
can
me,
test.
there isn't much that gets me volatile, so this will be fun.
Just remember that I detest that movie, and I'm lukewarm at best on the
God.
movie I'd love for you to talk
He
about
is
next.
the emperor right now. God, it's just like
Search your hate,
oh.
let it guide you, and know that the movie that I need you to talk about, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, middling at best for me. It's fine. It's fine. Well, tell me why you love it. Why do you love this? Why does everyone love this fucking movie so much?
The scene where Clark loses his mind, gives the iconic, I'll say iconic, speech. We're going to have the happiest Christmas is Bing Crosby tap dance with Danny fucking Kaye. Hallelujah. Holy shit. Where's the Tylenol? Like, and then Randy Quaid goes out and kidnaps his boss and brings him. There is a sequence of about 20 minutes that is just not unbridled, just chaos and fun and amazing. And Chevy at the pinnacle of that character's explosion, not the pinnacle of that character performance, but just when it blows up, and it happens all at once. And I adore it.
I will offer you now. I said I was going to wait. I will now offer you my official rankings of the Vacation series,
right.
And I will tell you why. And there's actually kind of a big reason, but I'm not going to tell you the reason until after I lay out the order. Number one, I love National Lampoon's European Vacation.
Right.
Then I go Standard Vacation. Then I go Vegas Vacation. And then I go Christmas Vacation. What, in your mind and mine, do you see as the pattern there? As the movies go, there is increasingly more Cousin Eddie.
Interesting.
There is increasingly more Randy Quaid. I love European Vacation because Eddie isn't in it.
Huh.
And he annoys me.
Okay.
I don't find him funny. I find him obnoxious. And not obnoxious funny. I've seen obnoxious funny. I like obnoxious funny.
Yeah.
He never did it for me.
Huh.
He's never done it for me. My ranking is, yeah, shitter's full. Funny line. I've been hearing it for my entire fucking life. It's not that great. I don't care. Good talk.
Okay.
But that said, I love the speech at the end. Like you said, it's too good not to appreciate. The stuff with the lights is fun. Chevy Chase's concerns about his family, I think he plays very well in these funny situations. I do not hate Christmas Vacation. I don't detest Christmas Vacation.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. I just don't love it like everyone else loves it.
All right.
I detest the one I'm asking you not to talk about until December.
You're just gonna keep doing this.
So-
You're gonna keep doing this every week, just to
I promise I
feed
won't.
the hate.
But I needed to put a bow on the Christmas
All
talk.
right.
And I also just wanted to really hit it, that it's not a joke. I don't hate Christmas Vacation. And I'm not going to sit here and say I hate Christmas Vacation. I just don't love it like everyone else loves it. I don't know what else to say.
All right.
You know, I hope that is a fair, reasonable, and measured response for you.
It is.
Okay. Okay, good.
So
I'm glad.
we got one more to figure this out, right?
And here's the thing. It is Ghostbusters 2. And listen, because I think we have talked the least about Ghostbusters 2 of any Ghostbusters movie. We did talk about it in the Ivan Reitman episode. I don't want to dive into a whole hog.
Mm-hmm.
But there are scenes in Ghostbusters 2 that are as good as Ghostbusters 1 in isolated, taken as a fun scene.
Right.
Isolated ghost busting scenes. The charm is still there for the cast, but the chemistry, the cast is, I'm trying to find a way to say, the cast is as charming as ever, but not given the ability to be as charming in as many scenarios. You can tell they still got it, and they're great together, but the scenarios they're put in aren't as great, and they're not as entertaining. And the fact that you can tell it's the influence, and the reason I didn't think about it as a kid, and maybe I thought about it more as I got older, is there's the influence of the real Ghostbusters and the fact that it's the first time they recognize, oh, this has become a property.
Mhm.
This isn't a sequel I'm making to Ghostbusters. We have to navigate the next step in the property, and it suffers because of that. There are parts of this movie that are so good, and there are parts of this movie that are so fun, but it suffers for the fact that they're like, oh, we have to protect for the future. We're building for this. We have to do this. And the fact that this script, the reason it took 5 years to get a sequel out is they kept arguing about what the sequel would be. And the reason we never got a real third is because they always would forevermore just keep arguing about what the script would be
Hmm.
and never get Bill Murray to sign on. They are so good in the characters, and it is almost heartbreaking seeing the potential that is still so there and just doesn't quite get it. Does that work for you?
I think so. It also sort of suffers is the wrong word. The hookup or the connection of Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver feels so much more organic in the first one, and this feels really weird, forced, and she has a child with another man, like, and then he's there to sort of take care of it. It's kind of thrown in. I don't know.
I actually like the arc overall, the way it ends and the way they develop it. Like them reconnecting, I think is some really fun interpersonal stuff. The problem to me is the breakup and the marriage in the middle, because I realized that it would have made Bill Murray's character, it would have made Peter Venkman a lot more unlikable. But this movie makes so much more sense if that was his kid
Right.
and he was too scared and couldn't handle it. If that is his kid and they fell out and he was irresponsible and this is them reconnecting and him becoming a better person, holy shit, does that entire arc work so much better.
Agreed.
It needed to be his kid for all of that to make sense.
And I think ultimately that is also, now it is obviously personal bias on liking, I think, Christmas Vacation more than Ghostbusters 2. But having that, I would need Bill Murray to be more of a force in a movie that I don't like as much as one where I think Chevy Chase is a force in. I guess that's why I give Chevy Chase the nod, in my opinion.
I'm not sold yet. You're probably right. But I do agree with your point. You need him to be as good as he is in Ghostbusters 1, and he's just not. Even if the movie around him wasn't as good, if he was as manic and good, maybe he would have risen some of the material up with him, and it's not there.
Yep. I originally was looking at it and was saying that I thought if you wanted to argue that it's the aggregate, the average, and Fletch Lives brings it down, but looking back at it, Fletch Lives apparently wasn't as poor as I remembered. But if I'm going to remember Christmas Vacation that well, I have to kind of take how I remember Fletch Lives and the same idea.
Here is my mild counter argument. Despite our criticisms, Ghostbusters 2 is still fondly remembered, still played on TV. There are people who still love it. And like I said, there are scenes that are as good as any others. And also, it made, I think, as much or more than both of those movies combined.
In the box office, right?
Correct.
I think it's difficult to put and I'd have to see how the rights work on just knowing that Christmas Vacation is going to be played every year from December 10th to December 24th or whatever, like nonstop on a variety of cable channels. It's like
you're right.
Saturation, I feel like it means something.
My gut reaction wants to be, well, we have to grade the year for the year, but that's not true. We haven't been doing that. We've graded it on the year and how it aged. If it was just the year on the year, I would give it to Bill Murray. But without that, with both movies being decent hits And then the cultural cachet of what Christmas Vacation becomes, my personal feelings aside, I will agree with you and I will stop arguing and I will give it to Chevy Chase.
All right.
It really is just because I do feel like Ghostbusters 2 has a place in a conversation still today, that it is still talked about, that it made a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason, as classic as Ghostbusters is, they wouldn't have been talking for 25 failed years about a 3 if 2 hadn't made bank also.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that in my mind. But I will shut up and I will give it to Chevy Chase. And listen, with the gap, and listen, I think it's fair too, because with the gap he took and with the year off that they both took, Chevy Chase worked harder in the 80s. Despite some of the bombs and misfires, he worked harder in the 80s. It is probably right that he won the 80s.
Yep. Not by much. So.
Not by much, but... And he also took some bigger swings in the 80s.
Right.
Some of those things were real fucking weird.
Oh, that'll come into play in the 90s too, so.
Yes, it will. When some of those swings maybe don't work out the same way.
Yeah.
But respect to him, he took some of the swings. And they worked, and he comes out with the victory.
Yep.
And that's great. You know what? That's
good for Chevy.
That's great. Good for Chevy. And before I do the plugs that we should talk about, we got a nice 5-star review on the old Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
That I always say, if we get a new one, I'll read it out. We got it from Michael S. in North Carolina.
What up, Mike?
He says,
the other Mike. So.
No, there it is. Thankfully, he likes me, you dick. At least he, seems to. 5-star review. I've been a fan of Mike Barcode since discovering his TikTok page, so I knew I had to listen to this show. The podcast is a hodgepodge of pop culture discussion and references that make for an enjoyable listen that feels different with each episode. Thank you. Randy playing the straight man, although he gets some good one-liners in. All right, I guess. To Mike's humorous ramblings, aren't I? Yes, agreed.
Mm.
Gives you a truly entertaining duo. Thank you both, and look forward to hearing more. Michael. Once again, Michael S. in North Carolina didn't write a review for us.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
I praise
really,
it.
really appreciate it.
Glad
Very
you're
kind.
enjoying it. So.
Yes, definitely. It's nice to hear from people. And listen, here's the deal. If you are enjoying it, it helps us find more people. Like, it's not just that, we want to be pumped up. Well, obviously, we do. We have egos, they're fragile. But it really helps us find more people. It helps us get out there if you do leave a positive review and those 5 stars. But that's not to say we're not, immune to criticism. If you disagree with one of our takes, if you want to yell at me for my takes on Christmas Vacation or, anything of the like, send me an email, Mike Barcode, that's MikeBarcode @gmail.com. That same name, that same spelling on TikTok, as mentioned in the review, and Instagram. I put out things about the show. I put out other things. I like being out there and talking with people. But please, dive on in. Let us know. If you want to tell Randy how right I was about 1989. Now, was there there? Was it? Are you changing your mind? You agree?
No.
Oh, I see. So I guess in that case,
I'm more thinking about how, since I can't see your emails, you could just be like, "Hey, I got this email from a bunch of people that said."
Yeah, that's not you. Don't worry about it. No, I won't show you. They already got spam filtered.
Oh, weird.
After you read them? Yeah, it's crazy. But we'll say goodbye and thank you so much, Randy.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. That's what you usually. It feels wrong to me. You have a cadence every episode, but we can get rid of it. No, that's my problem. No, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're done. Say anything else to end it. I'll still give you the last line.
Goodbye, everybody.
God damn it! I said don't do it this time. I'm so angry.